gather on Californian land, home of the Ottawa, now part of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Realm. We offer thanks to their ancestors, the stewards of this land, and respect to their descendants who belong here still. We acknowledge that the settlers who founded Forest Grove and built Pacific University were also responsible for pushing Indigenous people from this land. Knowing this, we commit to learn from the past, recognizing the irreparable loss to the Ottawa. Tonight we honor them and celebrate Native American Heritage Month by welcoming our keynote speaker, Dr. Ponka-We Cozad. Dr. Cozad has served in the Kansas House of Representatives for 12 years and is the first Native American woman to serve in the Kansas legislature. She's a member of the Tohono O'odham Nation of Arizona and Ponca Tribe of Oklahoma. She earned a graduate degree in public administration from Wichita State University and a doctoral degree in education from Creighton University. She's been successful in passing good legislation and is a longtime advocate for undocumented students and families, domestic violence victims, tribal sovereignty, education, safety, and the environment. What is most notable is the manner in which she represents her Native American heritage and culture as a public figure. She is here to share with us how that representation matters. So please welcome Dr. Ponka-We.
Thank you. Let me get my water by me. Thank you, Pacific University for having me. It's I'm loving Oregon. It's my first time ever here, and I love it. I sent pictures home to my mom, and everyone's like, "It's so colorful and beautiful," and they're jealous. And I'm definitely coming back though. I heard to come back in the summertime, and I already have like my places marked out. Well, I got to see the waterfalls and the beach, and I'm a Twilight fan, so I'll be back. But thank you for having me. Thank you so much, and a Native American Month, and I'm just happy to share this. You share your space with me. I want to introduce my sister, Clarissa Costin, from the Colville Nation, Nez Perce. She came from Cooley Dam, Washington, to see me 6 hours, and we haven't seen each other in over 20 years. But we moved with technology. We talk like almost every day. We started with snail mail, and then we went to email, and then we went to Yahoo Chat, MySpace, and Facebook, and so we went through all those different times, but we always kept in contact, and we grew up together since we were little girls, and so I'm very happy to see her and thankful that she could come. But thank you for coming to the presentation. And what I want to talk about today is about the importance of representation, and representation matters. And so this is me when I was sworn into office about 12 years ago. And I'm not running for re-election, 12 years, 6 terms. I have a daughter, and we'll get more into that of my decision. But this is me wearing my best suit. So I got an email the night before we got sworn into office, and I had a talk with my mom. I said, I don't have a suit. What am I going to wear? And she said, you have the best suit hanging in your closet. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, your tribal regalia. She says, that's who we are. And sure enough, when I showed up, then everybody's like, wow, like everybody had questions and what everything meant. And the robe that I got on is my great-grandmother's robe, who I'm named after, Ponka-We. And so my name means Ponka woman. We in my tribe means woman. And so that is me when I was sworn in as the first Native American woman to the Kansas legislature. Okay, I'm hitting.
Okay, any tech people?
I think it's my luck. Which what? Oh, she said the mouse? Okay. Okay. So just a little statistics about representation. Um, there's a smaller number of Native American women who are represented on all levels of government, whether that be municipal, school board, state legislatures across the country. Native American, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian people only make up 0.03% of elected officials, where we represent 3.4% of the total U.S. population. So in order to be equal, we would have to be in 17,000 or so seats across the country. So the voices of Native women are missing at the table. And this summer, I spent my time, even though I'm not running for office, I'm still involved because I trained Latinas, I train Native women to run for office and recruiting constantly because I feel like planting the seed is so important. And so that's like being at the table. When I first came to the table, I learned right away I have some strikes against me being in Kansas is a red state. I represent the blue. And so right away, it's kind of intimidating because you're a woman, I'm a brown woman, and I'm a Democrat. And so I had all these strikes already coming to the table, I felt like. So I can see why running for office can be a little intimidating. So through my training this summer with my colleague, Representative Haswood, she's from the Navajo Nation, we really tried to break down that barrier, kind of like, we can do it, you can do it, encourage more women to run for office. So in 2018, this is me with some state legislators across the country. And the one next to me, actually, she's in the Oregon legislature, Tauna Sanchez. And to the left of me is Representative Ruth Buffalo, Senator Gonzalez from Arizona in the red, and on the end is Senator Mary Kanush from Minnesota. So we was at our Capitol, D.C., and U.S. Capitol there. So some more statistics. In 2018, a record-breaking number of Native women sought election on all levels of government, and over half of the Native women who sought election seeked victory. So equal representation, I've learned, is so important, and so that's why I constantly want to recruit more Native women and people that look like us to serve in these positions. So that's a little overview about representation and what I see, and I'm going to talk about my background and how I got here in the legislature. So I'm a member of the Thon-Otham Nation, Ponka tribe. My dad is from the Thon-Otham Nation in Arizona. My mom's from the Ponka tribe. And I don't know if you've heard, but of the school, Haskell Indian Nations University is where my parents met. So my dad's from Arizona, my mom from Kansas, and that's where they met. And back then it was a 2-year college. And so my mom always says, I got an education and a husband. So I was the first Native woman elected to the Kansas House, and I've served like 6 terms in office. And so I have a daughter, and her name is Walking Star Maga'e Mabi, and she's my pride and joy. She's 14 months now, and she is, I miss her. And I told my mom, send me some pictures, but evidently she's not missing me because she was at the park eating fries with Grandma, having the time of her life, and I'm the only one that's having anxiety. But also, I'm a great-granddaughter of Ponka chiefs, Standing Bear and Big Snake. And so people always like, how did you get in? Like, some people you wonder, like, did they just wake up and, hey, I'm going to run for president or something, like, where did they come? How did they get to that conclusion? So with me, I always heard stories about my great-grandpa, and we don't say great-great-great. We just say grandpa. That's how we approach that. And I always heard all these stories about my grandpas and what it was like for them. So my grandpa, Big Snake, he was shot. He was assassinated by the U.S. government, and in the 1800s, because he was becoming like too much of a leader, powerful leader, like they couldn't contain. So he was actually assassinated by the U.S. government because he wouldn't play by the rules, type of thing. In our days, we wanted to roam off the reservation because the government moved us to Oklahoma, and we were originally from Nebraska. Or no, and so we wanted to go back and forth, have the opportunity. And my grandpa Standing Bear fought for that because he said the law should apply for us too, that we're able to roam off reservation. And what happened when they moved us from Nebraska to Oklahoma, his son passed away. And so he wanted to go back to our native land in Nebraska to bury him, and he got thrown in jail. Thank God some local farmers went ahead and took his son and buried him in Nebraska. But he was mad. He said, I should have the opportunity to put my son to rest. And so he sued the United States that the law should apply to us too. And I believe like he was one of the first civil rights leaders, and he won. And he didn't know no English. He had an interpreter with him the whole time. And this is a famous quote that he said in the courtroom. And he said, my hand is not the same color as yours. If I pierce it, I shall feel pain. If you pierce your hand, you too will feel pain. The blood that flows will be the same color. I am man. The same God made us both. And that is a picture of him. And they said that that like brought the house down, and he won. He had a good victory. And the reason his hair is short, because a lot of times you see chiefs like with long hair, this was after his brother was assassinated. And in our native culture, when somebody passes away, we cut our hair. And so that's why his hair is short. So a lot of people don't know that either. And so he kind of left his brother, Big Snake, in charge of the tribe while he went out and was seeking to win justice for us. And I think like as a retaliation, his brother was killed. So that's always stuck with me. I've heard this story over and over since I was a little girl. And so I feel like, with leader, like it was in my blood, like I always feel strength from them. And I'm happy they paved a way for me today. So becoming aware and involved. So this is me working on some campaigns way back in the day. And if you talk to Clarissa, she'll tell you like, yeah, she always had this idea like, someday she was going to have a TP on the Capitol, like, and be a representative or something. So when I was in 8th, I always knew, what was going on. Like I grew up from humble beginnings. I'm not ashamed of that. And I always knew, I was aware that a lot were less fortunate than others, and we always had coat drives, and we always participated like in, cleanups on the river. My mom would wake us up so we could pick up trash on the riverbank, to be good to Mother Earth, things like that. And so in 8th grade was the Columbine shootings, and around that time, and I wrote a letter to the governor that I didn't feel safe going to school, and I was scared during lunch hour, and she wrote me back, and I thought that was pretty cool. But I always was aware of things like that, and our healthcare, our Indian healthcare is sometimes it can be really horrible, as far as waiting to get seen, or maybe there might be one dentist on the reservation. And so you have to call in at this time on this date, or you don't get in. And imagine having like a cavity or something, and if you miss, and if you don't call at the right time, you don't get seen. So it's horrible. So I always wanted to do something about our IHS, Indian Health Service. And so I started volunteering on campaigns, walking doors, licking envelopes. And I did an internship in DC in 2005 with the Native American Congressional Internship, Morris K. Udall. If you're a student, look that up. Changed my life. I attended a lot of Senate hearings, and I seen that we was not represented at the table when different things were being cut, like our education, our health care, everything clicked in here. Like, that's why we don't have good health care. This is why, ABC. So gaming rights, water rights. I grew up a little bit on the Thon-Otham Nation reservation when I went to college out there, like in 2000, I believe. And we'd wake up, and we didn't have no water on the reservation. So I couldn't brush my teeth or wash my face because the local town had drained the water. So we didn't have no rights there. So I had to go to school with my toothbrush, and there was all his students that were from the reservation. So everything clicked once I was an intern in DC. And so one time I had asked, back then John McCain was the Senate of Indian Affairs chairman. And my mom always said, don't ever be afraid to ask. Never, if you don't ask, you won't know. So one time we were in the elevator, and I said, how come there's no natives at the table? And he said, and I said, but you guys are making decisions for us. We're not babies. We can make our own decisions. And he said, that's interesting. He said, you should run for office someday. And I told him, I said, yeah, when I'm 60 or 70, because that's what I was seeing over there. And he said, no, run right now. And I said, and you know how he's always like this. And I said, now? Yeah, right, I'm too, And he said, this is what you do. Go home, get involved, learn about the campaign process, and let your party know you're interested, and I guarantee you're going to run. So this picture, I think when I was maybe 24, and by 28, I was running for my first term. So I went home, took his advice right away, show interest, and everybody wanted me to work on their campaign, and so I showed up and got to learn the process. And so this is one of the election nights. One of my people that I was working with won their election, and so we was all happy. But that's some of the ways that I started getting involved. So internship opportunities, like I was talking about, the Morris K. Udall internship was a good internship for Native students. They picked 12, and the applications are open right now. I encourage you to apply, and you spend the summer in DC with housing. Everything's covered. So Morris K. Udall was, I believe he was a representative in Arizona back in the day, and he was for Native rights. And so this is one of his legacies that he wanted to continue. So his family continues on with this internship, which is really cool. So this is the former rep before me. She was the first Latina elected to the Kansas legislature, and I helped her on her campaign, and I was her go-to person. So let me tell you this story, how I really got involved. So her family owns a Mexican restaurant. If you're ever in Wichita, Connie's Mexico Cafe, it's so good. It's in my district. So her family owns a restaurant, and we became good friends and walked doors with her and whatnot. One night, I just graduated with my master's degree in public administration, and she said, can you come over to the restaurant tonight? I want to talk to you. I said, this is 9 o'clock at night. I said, sure. So I thought, she probably wants me to write up something, or she's probably going somewhere that she wants me to go with her. And so I went over there, and she was sitting in a booth, and I could tell something was on her mind. And she said, hey, you've grown up in this district all your life. I said, yeah, I love my district. I love my community. And she said, you know the issues, you know the people, you know, and like I'm telling you, I'm 28 years old, and I still didn't know where she was going with this. And she said, I got a job offer in D.C. And I said, wow, that's awesome. That's when Sebelius, Kathleen Sebelius from Kansas, went to D.C., and she was going to go with her. And she said, so I think I might take it. And I said, oh, yeah, that'd be cool. Not dawning on me, you know. And she said, well, I need somebody to fill my shoes and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, yeah. So I'm like going to write down names. Who do you like want me to help or whatever? And she said, well, I want you to run for my seat. And I said, me? Like, and then I started thinking, like, I'm not even, you know, got a secure job yet. I've not been out in the real world yet. I barely got my first, you know, place, and I'm not married. So just thinking like that, I have a family kind of thing. And she said, no, you know the area, you know the issues. People are comfortable with you already. You've been with me everywhere. You know all the groups. So I said, okay, well, let me think about it. And she said, well, filing deadline's tomorrow at noon. So here I am, like, oh my gosh, like, no way. And I said, noon, like, what? And she said, well, I'm not going to run, and I want to know if you don't, then I need to find somebody like right now. All night I got to work on this. And I said, well, let me go home and talk about it with my family. And I'm a spiritual person, so right away I went home and I prayed about it. And I just want to encourage everybody, like, take off every opportunity, even though you don't know what you're getting yourself into. And I didn't. And I just, I went for it, you know. I said, okay, I'm going to do it. So there we are, like 9 a.m. hauling to Topeka, Kansas, which is 2 hours from Wichita. And there we are with my mom, her, and me. And we get there, and I sign up right here. This is where I signed up. We got the paperwork for representative. And just like back in the day, high school, my mom, you know, starting from when I was in Brownies, you know, we need a parent, you know, to go on a field trip. My mom can, you know. We needed somebody for prom chairman. My mom can do it, you know. I was always volunteering my mom like that. So they said, you need a treasurer or you can't run. And I said, Mom. And she's like, I can't believe this. Like, didn't you know this? I said, no, like I didn't. So we learned together about that process. But she had to sign up because, I mean, I think I signed up like when it was like 11:30. Like we didn't have time. So there I am, you know, put my name in the hat, and that was 12 years ago. So take every opportunity you can. I didn't know this was coming, and I didn't have a chance to tell anybody. And there I was, right in the middle of it all. So, and there I am on the campaign trail with then Representative Jim Ward, Senator Faust-Godot, and me. So it was crazy because I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, but not really. And I learned fast. I had to learn fast. They always say like politics is like drinking from a fire, like, you know, hose. Like it's just really fast pace. And so right away, I got into it, and I chose red and white because that was my school colors. So I went to I had public education my whole life, and those were the school colors of my high school, which they're all in my district. So I was really happy to represent the red and white there. So here I am sworn in to office, and this is the blanket I was talking about that was passed down to me. So my grandma made this beautiful blanket, and it's like a robe that you wear over your regalia. Like when something big happens, like you get honored, or you're having like a feast or a giveaway, or you're given to other tribes, or some kind of honoring. And it was really weird. My grandmother passed away when I was like 6 years old. And she made this blanket, and she got up and she took a picture in it. And I was there, and my mom said, "Oh, it's beautiful." And she had cancer, and my mom said, you know, "Would you like to be put in this when you pass away?" And she said, "No, I actually made this for Ponka-We. She's gonna need it." And my mom said, "What?" She's like, "There's gonna be a special day, and she's gonna use it." And my mom said, "Well, you went to all that work, though." And she said, "Yeah, but I'm not gonna be here, but I'm gonna pass this to her, and she's gonna use it." So it touches me every time, because she did all the beadwork on it and the sewing, and her name was Ruby, and so my daughter's English name's Ruby. So it gives me great pride to pass it to Ruby, little Ruby now. So the blanket will go to Ruby, and it's funny because we had an honoring. We brought Ruby into the powwow circle a few months ago. And it was funny because I brought this blanket out of our cedar chest, and she looked at it, and she was in her little walker, and she picked it up, and she just had it like this. And I sent it to my mom. I said, "Does she know? You know, like that's gonna be mine someday." So here I am working in action, and this right here, this picture is when I had my press conference about the MMIW, the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women bill that I sponsored back in 2019, I believe, or 2020, right before the pandemic happened. And it was to educate. I'm constantly educating others about our issues and how important they are to us and why they need to get passed into legislation or into law. And so my bill was for law enforcement training about the MMIW, because they do law enforcement training for human trafficking. And so we created our own section about the MMIP, I say, Murder or Missing Indigenous People Action. And then on the left side is a hearing. For every year they try to repeal the in-state tuition for undocumented students. So in my community, we have a high population of the undocumented community, and so every year I fight to keep the in-state tuition for undocumented students. So there I am testifying, and who better to talk about immigration? You want to talk about immigration? Let's talk about immigration. So those are some of my pictures in action. And then out of the blue, they asked me to preside over the House, because they knew that I might retire, and usually that honor only goes to Republicans. And so I was very shocked when they asked me. I was like the first Democrat and woman to sit in the chair and preside over the House that day. So that I was very happy. But there was a racist remark made to me while I was presiding over the House, because I had hit my gavel because I couldn't hear who was speaking at the well. And they do that all the time to quiet the House down because there's so much talk. And I couldn't hear if they were finished or not, so I hit my gavel, and the person talking at the well had made a comment about my tomahawk. And it was viral. I swear anything I did just went viral over the night. And there I am thinking So everybody had seen it, and the gasps, why did you say that, He later apologized to me, and I wouldn't accept his apology because I'm you should know how to act. You don't. And then it was live. That was a hot mic. It was live. Everybody heard it. You should know how to conduct yourself. If you don't, then why are you here? Kind of thing. We have to respect everybody. So, but I didn't let it run my day. And then hopefully the next person that gets to sit in the chair. I always feel you take hits when you're the first, right? And then now people will know how to act, hopefully, when the next person comes and gets to sit in the chair. We call it the big chair. So one of the bills that I sponsored was the Native American Regalia Bill. So in high school, sometimes we want to wear eagle feathers on our caps. We want to, like, we are given eagle feathers or feathers like when we graduate. That's a big honor. And we want to wear our regalia too. And sometimes schools won't let us because they want you to all wear a black dress, or they don't want nothing on your caps, and sometimes we adore our caps with our beadwork because we're proud. And so a lot of pushback from that within our Native communities. So I made a law that said, that you're able to wear your tribal regalia when you graduate and your feathers and whatnot. And it passed. And so there I am, kind of giving them an ideal, talking in my tribal regalia dress. This is my buckskin dress. It's pink, and it has stars on it because that was my grandmother's Indian name. And now it's my daughter's name, Walking Star. So there I am talking about tribal regalia and why it's so important for us. And people were saying, that's silly, why do you have to do a law? But that's what it's come to, because every year I hear from parents, like, this school or this administration said that they ain't going to be able to graduate if they wear their eagle feathers or their regalia, So I said, let's just make it a law, and it passed, and a lot of other states followed after that. So I also honored Native American veterans in Kansas and brought all the color guards onto the House floor. It was an awesome opportunity. They were all very proud. It was a proud moment. So these are some of the sponsored legislation that I done that turned into law. As I was writing this, I was like, God, there's a lot others, but I'll just leave them off because it's Native related, but there's also some that wasn't Native related, like the domestic violence one. I've also sponsored bills on water funding. Kansas is an agriculture state, and for so long our previous governors weren't funding our water plans, and so I had a law about this has to be in your budget, a part of your budget, and so that was always important. And another one was driver's license. So I'm an advocate for driver's license for the undocumented community. So everybody can be safe on our roads and feel safe on our roads. And also another one was there was these like parking fines that was stopping people from not being able to drive legally because these fines kept adding up and adding, and then they're just trying to get to work, right, or get their kids from school. And so we fixed that law. So it was always something like that, always listening to what needed to be done in the community. I'm an advocate of Medicaid expansion. That could really help my community, but Kansas has yet to pass that. So just different legislation like that I've worked on throughout the year. Also, the statute of limitations bill having to do with sexually violent crimes. And we pushed that back to 20 years. Before it had a cap at 18. So we pushed that back. There's no cap on rape. And so that was something that I've learned to bring everybody to the table and work with everybody. And then, like I said, like our Native bills, there was an issue with a Native American family, some students that had come to me and say, hey, we can't graduate because we get moved to the city and we have to abide by their graduation requirements. Then we go back to the reservation and we have to abide by their requirements. So we're not graduating, we're going to quit. And so they had been in school, like they were 19 years old and they couldn't graduate. So we fixed it like immediately, that they only had to abide by the Kansas board requirements. So just little things like that makes like a huge difference. Also, the veterans bill One was the veterans that were domiciled on tribal land, like on reservations. The veterans that had homes there were getting taxed illegally by the state. And so we went back and fixed that, and we're talking like 30 years, while they were gone, they were illegally taxed by the state. So we went and fixed that. Then they had the big voter ID bill, well, I tacked on there that you can use your tribal ID for that because a lot of our elders didn't have driver's license or anything like that, so you can use your tribal ID. And Native American Legislative Day at the Capitol. So when I got to the Capitol 12 years ago, Sam Brownback was our governor, and we don't see eye to eye on anything. And but he was good to work with, and I said, hey, why are our tribes here from Kansas? There's 4 tribes in Kansas: the Paraband Potawatomi, the Iowa, the Second Fox, and the Kickapoo Nation. I said, how come our tribes aren't here at the Capitol? They should be here, to see your speech, and they should be invited. And he said, well, they don't ever come because I guess they don't have any issues. And I said, well, you have to invite them, and we don't trust the government, you're going to have to go to them. And he said, well, why don't they trust? And I said, okay, never mind. And so he said, okay, I'll go to them, but you have to go with me. So I said, okay, fine. So we went to every tribe, and it was really awesome because he took a buffalo to each tribe to kind of give back, to feed. And it was an awesome opportunity. And then, and I made him carry light tobacco and talk with the tribal leaders. And so he thought that was really cool. And so they start coming to the Capitol. And then my mother, so I'm only scared of 2 things, my mom and God. So, so when I first got elected, my mom said, I'm happy for you, go up there, be strong, whatever. But she said, if I hear you're crying up there, you're going to have something to cry about when you get home. And she said, they better not be making you cry up there. I'm not crying, do that in your own home. Okay, so first week, we had Sam Brownback, I came in with him, and we had, she wanted to come up there. So she was in my office, and I came back to my office, and she wasn't there. And I'm like, where'd my mom go? And they said, I don't know, and so I happened to be walking on 2nd floor where the governor's office is, and there she was sitting with Sam Brownback. And they were eating lunch together. She had a little box lunch, and he had a little box lunch. And they were talking, and I said, oh, no. So I went in there, and she said, I told him he better leave you alone. I said, Mom, you can't say that. Like, no, I will, he was saying. I told him, I came down here telling you better leave her alone or you're going to deal with me. So I was like, but that's Native mothers for you, So after that, they became the best of friends. And sometimes I'll get like a text out of the blue, how's your mom? And it'll be him. And I'm like, oh, great. So, Mom, your buddy, And so, but that just showed that, building that relationship. So then he was all pumped up about, the tribal leaders are coming to the Capitol now, and they're participating in the hearings. What else can we do? And I said, well, let's bring them to your mansion. Open your mansion up, and we'll come. And he said, okay. And so I encouraged all the tribes to bring their native food to the mansion, and that's the first time that ever happened. And it was funny because he said, welcome to the mansion, and they said, actually, this is our land. This is Potawatomi land that you're on, so you can call us landlord. So that was funny. And actually, Topeka, one of the counties in Kansas is Waubonsee County. And it was funny because there was an elder lady that prayed for our meal, and her last name was Wabonsi. I might be saying that wrong. And this lady that was a representative came up and she said, "That's so cool, you're named after my county." And I said, "No." And then actually, the county's named after her people, her. Oh, really? So that's just the kind of mentality that I dealt with some of the times where I had to stop and educate. And being in my tribal regalia, I had a representative that said, "I'm so happy to meet you. I can't wait to work with you." And it was, I never met a live Indian before, or yeah, it hurts, but yet you got to understand, like they probably don't know. And then when I would get to know them, yeah, they're totally clueless. So it was always educating. What was helpful was I grew up in an urban city, so I constantly was the only one in brownies. So Native American Month, what was I doing? I was dancing for my brownie troop. And then it was high school. I was the only Native, so I was always dancing for our pep rallies, like Native American Month. "Mom, can you make fried bread?" Kind of thing. So it was always like that. So it was no different when I got to Topeka. And having a name like Ponka-We, I stuck out like a sore thumb. So that was always like, okay, I already know, here comes the questions, like, as far as like learning more about who we are. So this is Representative Ruth Buffalo. She's a former intern of mine. So I always say, stay away from me, you're going to run for something. Like, so she was my intern in 2013. And then she won her election, I believe, in 2018. And so she's from the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation. And I recruited Representative Haswood because it's not like our parties seek us out. Like, hey, we're going to go. We never get seeked out or recruited to run for office. So I took it upon myself when I heard an open seat in Lawrence area that represented Haskell Indian Nations University. I said, I have somebody already. I really didn't. But I seen the opportunity, and I was on the phone all night trying to recruit somebody to run for that seat because I knew it was so important to have help there. And she's from the Navajo Nation, but she was, like me, born and raised in Lawrence area. Her parents from Haskell, or met at Haskell. So she became the second Native woman elected. And then we had a third one, Representative Byers from Wichita area of the Chickasaw Nation, I believe. She came. So we had three. I had help and I didn't know how to act, but this is us and our tribal regalia. And I guess she's famous on TikTok, if you're on TikTok, Christina Haswood. And she had like over 1 million, I guess. It was amazing. So I've mentored her this whole time. So I mentor, even if they're not from Kansas, I mentor legislators, Native women who are currently in office or running for office. And so constantly I always had the youth with me, no matter what, at the Capitol, whether they were paging or shadowing me, because they're our next generation of leaders. And I told them, like, I'm not doing this forever. Like, you're going to have to take the reins someday. And this is the regalia bill. So just me and all of the youth testified on that bill about how important it is for us to wear a regalia on graduation day. So they're the ones that got it across that finish line. It wasn't me, it was them. So that's some of the students, I believe, from the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation and Kickapoo tribe. So everybody got used to seeing us in the Capitol. It wasn't so different, like at first it was. Because I remember taking a group of legislators to the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation casino to eat. And I remember them coming up to me, my colleagues, and saying, how do I get onto the reservation? Like, I'm not Native. Like, and I'm like, it's a casino, everybody's welcome. But they didn't know that, like, am I going to get kicked out? Like, I'm just staying by you, like. But, I mean, to break down those stereotypes is so important. And then here's my daughter when she was born. And my cradle board that I used, she passed it down to her. And I think she's 2 days old right here. And so I'm just getting released from the hospital. So, and I'm going to embed in her, like, dare to dream. That's what I always say. Like, I never thought I'd be in Oregon. Here I am. So, you know, that's what I always want to encourage people. Like, you just have to plant the seed. Like John McCain, of all people, right, did for me. I remember, and I'll go back a little bit, but I remember in 8th grade, when I did write to the governor and she wrote me back, I was inspired. So for our 8th grade project, we had to write about what we wanted to be like when we grew up or whatever. So I had wrote that I wanted to be in government, like I wanted to be governor or something. And I was so proud of it. It was like a page long, I think, our teacher, social studies teacher. So I handed it in, or maybe it was English teacher, and I got it back, and she wrote with a red pen across the, I said realistic goals. And that hurt, you know, and I wish I would have kept the paper now, but I didn't. But here's a funny fact. Years later, I got to be state representative, and she emailed me, and she said, I need help getting my driver's license. I had to call on God to help me, like, help her, yeah. But I made it through, you know. So, you know, that as a little girl at 8th grade, that hurt. I didn't have a lot of role models to look up to that were at that time in government. And so I created it in my head, what I would look like. And back then, I remember, I think Newt Gingrich was like big then. And I remember watching on TV with my grandpa, you know, the returns and things like that. So that really hurt me. But yet I thought it was funny that years later, she needed my help getting her license. And she's like, I'm going to go to Europe and visit my son, and I can't get my license. And it was so hard, you know. I wanted to delete, but then I said, no, like, here I am. I'm going to help her. So I was the better person, and I helped her get her license right away. And so it was just, you know, it's just those things you just never know, like tables turn. You just never know. So it's always good to be good to everyone. So that's what I want to teach my daughter someday. And that's why I'm stepping back from the political world is I want to be there for all the firsts. And, you know, she's my pride and joy, my husband, and just focus on my family right now. I don't know about the future. A lot of people say, are you going to run again for something else? I have no idea. Just leave it up, you know, to our Creator. But, you know, wherever I'm needed, that would probably be next for me. So that is it. So is there any questions? Yeah.
So, do you have more hope now than before when you first got elected in?
You had to ask me the day after the elections. I'm still licking my wounds. I think I do. You have to have hope. You know, that's what keeps you fighting. You know, that's what keeps you in the ring. And I have hope in my mentees who I've mentored, not just Representative Haswood, but like everybody that I kind of showed. You know, like I said, like my mother always said, it never hurts to ask. And so I would go to the speaker and talk to him or the governor and whatnot. And so, yeah, you always have to have hope. I do have hope, and I do believe in that pendulum. You know, when it swings one way, it's gonna have to come back. So I do believe in that. Yes.
Sort of a related question is, what's the biggest or one of the changes that you've seen that strikes you over the 12 years? You know, like what about the legislature has changed in the 12 years you've been there?
Ew. People like used to be in the middle of things, and now it's just way out there. and and I think like a lot of times I've seen in women crying, you know, like they're so scared of like their leadership, I guess, and they're intimidated a lot. And I see that like it's gotten worse as far as them trying to speak out about things. Like in quiet, they'll tell me, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, that does not make any sense. But then when it comes to a vote, if they don't like the way we're voting, they'll lock the doors and make us sit there until somebody will flip their vote. Yeah. And if we leave, then we get arrested by highway patrol. So that's one of our rules in the house, and that we call it, that's when they break arms. And so if they don't like a way a vote's going, and they know they can persuade somebody, or maybe they don't, they'll make us sit there. Like I've sat there maybe 8 hours. Yeah, they've been real hard on us. But you know, the good thing is like our Native American ceremonies are all night too. So it was nothing to me. Like I was fine, you know, I was chatty, and we had to sit in our seats, and we can't move in our ceremonies either. So I was like, okay, let's do this then. All night I can sit here. And you know, but they try to do that to wear you down, so you're like, want to get out of there. It becomes a torture chamber. And so, and sure enough, somebody will flip around 5, 6 a.m. So that will bring it to their vote favor. So, yeah, it is politics. Yeah, that's. Oh, there I am.
Where'd you see it?
Chat, maybe? Oh.
Or did she leave?
Well, does anybody else have any questions? Yes. Our next generation, like you. Like everybody's becoming more like vocal and aware, and I see when I came in, it was like a handful of Native women, maybe 5 of us in the state legislatures across the country, and now that's changed. I think we're up to like a lot. I don't know, I want to give you the wrong statistics, but we're up there now, you know, not where we should be, but it's a big difference. And so that gives me hope. And then like now all these resources to help you run for office. Like I worked with Advanced Native Political Leadership. That's a new organization that helps train natives to run for office. Like I didn't have that in my time. I was just kind of thrown in there, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, or how to do a stump speech, or how to deal with media. But that's all in this training now. And then I know there's other women trainings too available, like Emerge, I believe. And so even if you don't know what you're running for, I say still take the training. You just never know when an opportunity comes. And get involved in your local party, whatever that may be, and prepare yourself as much as you can. And yeah, it's scary, like to talk in front of people, but you get used to it, and so you practice all the time. So the woman that took my spot, we worked like around the clock on her talking, and now it doesn't even bother her, but before it was scary. But now she's used to it, so. That gives me the hope is the next generation is really paying attention, and they really want to know how they can get involved. Any other questions? Like the young students, they were at a hearing, and that must have been terrifying. That young, high school, junior high, and they were at a hearing. I don't know if I could have did that. They were at a hearing in front of all the representatives and senators, and so that must have been terrifying for them. But, you know, it's all about support. If you have the support, you can do amazing things. And so I was really proud of them. And then from there, I heard one of them said, well, I'm going to run for student council president. then they won, so it's just like you did the planting that seed, like you can do it. So and they got to be a part of that legislation when it was signed into law. So they got to see their hard work come full circle. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, as an intern? All the walking in a black suit. Funny story, I was walking in a black suit and I got in a cab. And I was like, I can't do this no more. I'm getting in a cab. And they said, well, you're going to share a cab. You're going to the same place. Oh, okay. So I get in the cab and I look over and it's Jesse Jackson. I'm like, oh my God. So there I was, like taking pictures. I thought that was pretty cool. You never know who you're going to run into. But one of the biggest challenges I think was, just, I guess, asking questions, because we would meet these important people like John McCain, or we would meet like Secretary of Education then. And it was just always getting out of my comfort zone to ask questions. But then it's like, we're all the same, just like my grandpa said, and so I would ask questions, but I would want to know more about, what they did and what their job entails, and that was always interesting to me. And at first I was going into the health field because I love science, and after I did the internship, I changed my master's degree to public administration, and I'm glad I did. And then I went on, and in the legislature, they said, well, you can't go get a doctorate. You can't go back to school. You got to focus here. Well, guess what? I'd wake up at 4 in the morning and do my homework. And then I got my doctorate's degree in 2020. So don't ever let anybody tell you, no, it's impossible. It's possible. You just got to work hard for it. And like I said, I was up at 4 anyways. And then I read, newspapers about me. And then I go on to work. So, that was always like how I broke up. Or I'd probably bug Clarissa too, because she's in childcare, right? So I always knew she was up early. So, any other questions? Yeah.
What do you feel like needs the most work?
Everything. I feel like just hearing, like, the representation is so important. Like, we know what our issues are in our local communities, but it's the people that represent them saying, yeah, I'm going to do something about it, but when we get up there, they vote a different way because they're scared to death of their leadership, and they might lose their seat, and they even might lose their parking spot. I've even seen parking spots go, and they've had to park down the block. They couldn't park. Just things like that. So I think, like, across the table, whether it be education, our public school funding, every year is a challenge to get funding. And then healthcare, like I said, I'm for Medicaid expansion. I want to help our rural hospitals, also to help our native hospitals as well. So just things like that. Everything needs a lot of improvement. Any other questions?
Is there a national organization that has been formed to help Native women, or even just Natives in general?
Yeah. You mean run for office?
Well, yeah.
Oh.
Help people get involved.
Yeah, it's the Advanced Native Political Leadership, and young people, LGBTQ+, women, everybody across the board. Every state has something like that, but that's a national organization that I work for this summer, and trying to recruit natives or young people to run for office. And it's like a training, like I said, like I do some of the trainings, and it's like I'm like jealous because I didn't have nothing like that. But I'm happy for them that, they have opportunity to ask questions and like I always say, if I can do it, you can do it. I didn't grow up rich. I grew up poor. But I'm not ashamed of it because it helped get me here. And so when we have issues about different things, I can get up and speak on it because I lived it. And I'm not ashamed of that. We need all people at the table, not just one group, because there's a lot of retired people in the Kansas legislature, and I hate it hearing, well, they're going to move out of the state anyway, so why should we fund education kind of thing. And it just always ticked me off, but I was always so happy that I was there to argue with them about that, and our teachers, and need to be paid more, and what we put on them kind of thing. And so, but that was always, I guess I have a lot of lived experiences, and other people too, and everybody. I feel like, because I always feel like if you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu, right? So it's always important to have representation. Yeah. And if you don't have a chair at the table, then pull up a lawn chair, So I've had to do that a few times. So, any other questions? Yes.
What is something that you wish you knew that you don't now?
Oh man, that's a good question, and I'll end with this because self-care is so important. John McCain, when he said, if you do get involved, don't forget to stop and smell the roses. And I had no idea what that meant back then, but I do now. And that is to take care of yourself. Because when I first got to the legislature, you know how it is, boom, 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 boom. And I was bringing my work home with me, and I was researching all night, reading bills, blah, 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 which is good, but I wasn't taking any time for myself, like self-care. As a student, you got to do that too, or you'll burn yourself out. And so I wasn't doing that at first, and my high blood pressure started going up, and my doctor was threatening me with high blood pressure pills and, things like that. And so I got into walking and swimming, and I love nature walks. And the weekend I try to just leave for family. And not check my email is hard, but I try to distance myself from work and leave it there at the Capitol because it can burn you out, and you got to take care of yourself. Nobody else will but you. So that is so important, and I've almost learned the hard way, but I stopped, and now I smell those roses. I understand what that means now. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another round of applause.
Oh.
Thank you all for joining us. Appreciate it. Indigenous Student Alliance has more activities this month, so just check the calendar, and thank you again.
Thank you.